For the French, the Louvre is more than a museum. Once a royal palace, it now stands as a monument to history, culture, and national pride. Every hall, every gallery tells a story centuries in the making. Security was ironclad. Cameras, scanners, guards, everything designed to make theft impossible. Then, on a quiet Sunday morning, October 19th, 2025, the impossible happened. In 7 minutes, a crew slipped through a second-floor window of the Galerie d'Apollon. No alarm stopped them. No one caught them in time. 2 cases of crown jewels vanished, and by noon, Paris was in lockdown. Streets were closed. Every screen in the city ran the same shocking headline.
Paris's Louvre Museum.
The Louvre jewelry theft.
Paris's Louvre Museum.
It wasn't just a robbery. It was a strike at France itself, a hit to its history and pride. The Louvre had been breached in broad daylight, and the world was watching. For decades, the Louvre had felt untouchable, a palace-turned-museum. It was more than walls and artwork. It was a fortress of history, a living symbol of French culture that had survived revolutions, wars, and centuries of change. Visitors strolled its halls, cameras clicked, and yet the treasures inside seemed beyond reach. Paintings, sculptures, and crown jewels weren't just beautiful. They were pieces of the nation's soul, tangible links to kings, emperors, and artists whose legacies had shaped the world. For generations, the museum's security had been trusted implicitly, assumed flawless. Yet the Louvre has always had its audacious moments. In 1911, a seemingly ordinary handyman named Vincenzo Peruggia walked off with the Mona Lisa, hiding it in his apartment for 2 years before it resurfaced in Italy. The theft captivated the world. Newspapers splashed the story across continents. For a fleeting moment, everyone's attention was fixed on a small painting and the man bold enough to take it. It was a stark reminder that history could be stolen, and even the most revered treasures were not untouchable. After that incident, the Louvre fortified itself with unwavering intensity. Guards followed meticulous routines. Cameras lined every corridor. Doors locked automatically. Entrances were timed to the second, and a 24-hour operation center monitored every inch of the museum. The Louvre had become a citadel of masterpieces, a place where history, art, and national pride were preserved behind layers of protection designed to be impervious. And yet, even the most secure fortresses have cracks. On a quiet Sunday morning, the unthinkable happened. The heist didn't arrive with explosions, lasers, or cinematic smoke. It came with planning, patience, and perfect timing. A team slipped in when the museum was least prepared, exploiting those cracks with ruthless precision. In just 7 minutes, priceless jewels vanished. Security scrambled. Alarms blared. Tourists were evacuated. Paris awoke to a new reality. The Louvre, the untouchable icon of art and history, had been breached. The world watched in disbelief as one of the greatest heists of modern history unfolded in real time. For 7 minutes, the impossible became reality, proving that even history's most guarded treasures were never truly safe. In the quiet aftermath, questions hung in the air. How could it happen? Who had the audacity to pull it off? And what would become of the stolen treasures? The Louvre had been violated, and nothing would ever be the same. They struck the Galerie d'Apollon, the hall that houses the crown jewels of France. Necklaces, tiaras, ceremonial pieces worn by emperors and empresses, each one a symbol of centuries of power, wealth, and artistry. The room sat deep inside the Louvre, barely 250 meters from the Mona Lisa, surrounded by layers of reinforced glass, motion sensors, vibration detectors, and armed guards. On a normal day, it would have been impossible to get near. But on that quiet Sunday morning, the scene looked ordinary, peaceful, serene. That calm was the perfect cover. A lift rolled up against a nearby construction zone, engines quiet, wheels barely whispering against the pavement. Men in yellow jackets climbed with a purpose, tools in hand, moving with the ease of people who had rehearsed every motion 100 times. A second-floor window was forced open with a blowtorch and a small chainsaw. The reinforced glass, meant to protect history itself, gave way in minutes. 7 minutes. Just 7 minutes. And 2 cases of priceless jewels were empty. The crew moved like clockwork. No hesitation, no wandering. Grinders screamed as centuries-old glass crumbled beneath them. Alarms blared, echoing through the museum, but the tourists didn't understand what was happening until it was too late. Phones came out, cameras clicked, but the thieves went straight to their targets. 9 specific jewels, a tiara, a brooch, a crown that had belonged to Empress Eugenie, Napoleon III's wife, and a handful of other pieces of unimaginable value, all gone in the span of a few brutal minutes. Inside, chaos erupted. Staff evacuated visitors, guiding them down staircases and through wings that usually teemed with tourists. Security locked down rooms, deliberately avoiding confrontation, while police sealed entrances and awaited reinforcements. Every delay in response worked in favor of the thieves. Calmly, efficiently, they retraced their path, exiting the Louvre the same way they had entered, through that upper floor window, vanishing from view as if they had never been there. Outside, the escape was meticulously orchestrated. Two scooters waited in the shadows, engines silent until the moment of departure. One crown, a 19th century artifact, was dropped or discarded during the rush, later recovered by authorities damaged. A rare flaw in an otherwise flawless plan. The thieves melted into the streets, leaving behind traces. A lift, yellow jackets, a faint trail of fingerprints, but nothing more substantial. Forensics immediately went to work. Prints were lifted from the lift's controls. Surveillance footage from interior corridors and surrounding streets was recovered, but investigators knew the thieves had anticipated every move. 9 days before the heist, the lift truck had been rented under a false name. On delivery day, masked men hijacked it, repainted it, and affixed a fake license plate. Every detail had been considered, every variable accounted for. The operation read like a heist movie, yet it was chillingly real. There were no lasers, no explosions, no cinematic theatrics. Instead, it was intelligence, planning, and precision executed flawlessly. The crew exploited a construction site, studied guard rotations, understood the museum's rhythms, and struck with timing that allowed 7 minutes to become a lifetime. The most secure items in France, held under layers of protection, had been taken as if they were paper in the wind. The aftermath left a city in shock. News crews swarmed Paris. Screens flashed images of the empty cases. Authorities were under immediate and intense pressure. The public demanded answers. How could the heart of French history, the Louvre, considered impregnable, be violated so swiftly? Museums around the world watched with alarm. The Louvre began an internal reckoning. Security protocols were reviewed, weaknesses cataloged, and the bitter truth sank in. No system is perfect. Questions about the thieves consumed investigators and the public alike. Who were they? How had they obtained such meticulous knowledge? The rental of the lift suggested weeks, perhaps months of planning. Were insiders involved? Were accomplices waiting elsewhere in Paris? The trail was minimal compared to the precision of the crime itself. Scooters, lift, fingerprints, and surveillance footage were all investigators had, and it barely hinted at the sophistication required to pull this off. Paris held its collective breath as leads were pursued. The jewels were worth hundreds of millions of euros, but the stakes went far beyond money. These were irreplaceable pieces of history, each artifact a testament to centuries of French heritage. Every second mattered. Every decision the thieves would make now, from melting, recutting, or attempting to sell, could determine whether their planning paid off or ended in disaster. The Galerie d'Apollon would never be the same. Shattered glass, empty cases, and the echo of a perfectly executed heist became part of its story. Paris had witnessed an audacious crime, one that blurred the line between reality and cinema. The Louvre had been breached, history had been violated, and the chase for the thieves and for the treasures they had stolen had only just begun. For 7 minutes, the impossible became real, and the world was watching. France woke up to more than a theft. The Louvre, a symbol of national pride, culture, and centuries of history, had been breached, and the world was watching. This was not a simple robbery. It was a public humiliation, a strike at the very heart of France's identity. Headlines screamed across newspapers and television screens. President Macron called it an attack on history. Jordan Bardella labeled it intolerable. Marine Le Pen said it wounded the very soul of the nation. And the Louvre was only the latest in a string of audacious hits. 3 museums in Paris had already been targeted since September. Pressure on authorities was intense. The public demanded answers, action, and results. Every minute counted. The stolen jewels were no ordinary loot. These were priceless treasures, steeped in history, symbols of centuries of French royalty and artistry. Necklaces, tiaras, crowns, all irreplaceable, all carrying the weight of an empire. They could not simply be fenced, sold, or melted without consequences. The stakes were enormous. 88 million euros hung in the balance. The first week after a museum heist is critical. Pieces recovered quickly remain intact, preserving both historical significance and monetary value. Delay, even by days, risks the treasures disappearing forever, broken, recut, or scattered across black markets worldwide. The thieves had options. They could break the jewels apart, sell gold or diamonds individually, or wait, knowing insurance companies sometimes offered massive rewards for recovered items. Timing, strategy, and patience would decide their fate. Clues were sparse. Investigators had little more than abandoned scooters, a rented lift, and a yellow vest left behind during the escape. Every trace had to be examined, every lead pursued. Yet the trail remained faint, almost ghostly. For France, the clock was merciless. Each hour that passed increased the risk that centuries of history could vanish, transformed into untraceable wealth in the wrong hands. The Louvre had been violated. History had been stolen in broad daylight. The nation faced a single, urgent question. Could authorities catch the thieves in time, recover the stolen jewels, and protect the legacy of one of the world's greatest museums before it disappeared forever? The race had begun, and there was no margin for error. Every second mattered. Every decision counted. And as Paris held its collective breath, one fact became chillingly clear. 7 minutes had changed everything.